Hello and welcome back to Confabulation. I'm Beverly, project coordinator and a DV advocate at Our Sisters House, which is a DV advocacy organization here in Tacoma, Washington. And today we have our guests, Dr. Adrienne Castile and Lavelle Wilson. I will allow them to introduce themselves, but before they introduce themselves, I want to let you know that Our Sisters House is not only a DV advocacy organization, we are also crime victims services also. If you or anyone that you know is experiencing domestic violence, contact us at 253-383-4275 or visit us at our website, oursistershouse.com. Today, we're going to be talking about this is the close of Black History Month. So today we're going to be talking about African Americans and wellness and physical versus mental health. So I'd like first of all to for Dr. Adrienne to introduce herself, who she is and where she is at.
Wow, thank you. So my name is Dr. Adrienne Castile, and I am the executive director. Well, now that I have moved to another part, so we have a behavioral health agency, Castile Williams and Associates, Conference of Behavioral Health. We've been around since 1986, and along with that, in 2005, I opened up a victim advocacy agency that specializes being able to navigate systems, because I worked for 20 years with perpetrators. And when we begin to work with contact the victims to send them for referrals and also get them, let them know what their rights were and protection plans, we found out that for African American women who are so marginalized in our society, and they don't trust police officers and they don't trust the court system, because systems have been generally designed to not to protect us. The systematic systems have been designed to oppress us and not to protect us. And Black women, women of color, are not seen as victims. We're sexualized. So oftentimes their needs are not met, and they will only go to their clergyman before they will go to any other resources. And so it's a blessing to have places like what we do in Our Sisters House, women that can walk in and see somebody look like them and understand that, wow, they get it, because oftentimes they're profiled. So give me on my little spiel, but so that's what I've been doing. And so we provide resources, legal resource support to be able to help these women transition. I just had an emergency call last night with a mother alone with her 3 daughters. So it's very prevalent, and these women need resources. So I've been doing that since 2005, and I also teach cultural competency classes for therapists, so those that's working in the field, to understand really how to deal with the dynamics of working with minority, African American, brown, and indigenous women in our communities.
Thank you, Dr. Castile. So, when we think of physical health, we often think of our mind and body as separate, but our mental health and physical health are interconnected. So I'd like to introduce you to, with that said, Lavelle Wilson, who is a gym owner and a private trainer. Lavelle?
Yeah, thank you. So Lavelle Wilson, I made my own gym in my garage about a year ago.
Wonderful.
I did it just because I just want to help people. And I don't say this I'm a bigger guy, so I stand like 6'4" and I weigh over 300 pounds. So can be a very intimidating person when you go into a gym. So I created a gym so people can come here. It's one-on-one or two-on-two training. And because the gym could be so intimidating and you might not know what to do or how to do weights, or, you know, it's just maybe not have a high self-confidence of how to do it or how much you need to do it. So I just put it on myself that why not create my own gym in my garage and invite people out to train and learn about their body and build self-esteem, build self-confidence. So I've been in it for over a year. I just say I like training, but I love helping people and seeing them reach a goal that they never could think they could get or do something they can never do. So my heart and my passion is to help every person that enters my gym, no matter what. And sometimes it's not even physical, it's the mental, it's the self-esteem, it's them motivating themselves to push themselves to a different level. So that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Lavelle. And
Awesome.
so my co-hosts are Skylar and Pearl. So do you want to, you can jump in at any time, either one of you. So I think my first question is how do we tie in mental health and physical health? Because again, as I said, a lot of people separate the body from the
Yes, they do.
spiritual, the mental.
Yes, they do.
And so we as African Americans, our wellness, the statistics show that we have the higher rate. And there are a lot of barriers due to the fact of color, race. And it's prevalent and more knowledgeable that mental health is more available to the white counterpart more so than it would be to African Americans. So you want to
Well,
speak?
often, and that is so very true, because what we have to look at historically is when we were brought into this country from slaves, that was a whole system, is to brainwash and to humiliate and so anything messing with our heads, we like, you mess with our heads enough. So we don't trust anybody to come and deal with us regarding our mental health issue, because they never did. They didn't consider us back in slavery, so they said, why do you consider us now? Because most of those, the Jim Crow laws and all the laws that have been created has been created to oppress us. And you have to remember all the different theories have not been tested on Black people. They were for European. So our tests are never going to be accurate because they weren't designed for us to start with. And so the only ones that African Americans trust is their priest, their preacher, their clergyman, that person that spiritually connects. But you're right, you cannot separate the body from the mind. And that's why we are the highest for heart disease, diabetes, and all the different medical issues that we're challenged with, because we refuse to, not refuse to, we are limited. We have a double bind when it comes to receiving medical services. And our health, sorry, my little setup is about to fall. Working is survival for us. We don't get the best job. So, if you're sick, you work as long as you can walk or crawl. You got to work because you got to provide for your family. So the only focus, unfortunately, for most African American families, especially minority families, is they have to make sure that their children are fed. They have a roof over their head. So they don't think about their mental condition. They don't think about their physical condition. But bringing that awareness to them that they're going to be better parents, better providers for their family if their physical and mental is stable. 80% of our medical conditions is stress related. 80%. That 20% is accidents.
Great. So, Lavelle, how do you tie in the physical to the mental?
So as a trainer, you're not just a trainer. You are sometimes a therapist, sometimes a counselor, because everyone has things that are going on in the world. So sometimes you get people coming in who just had a bad day at work, had a bad day with their kids, with their husband, with their wife. So their mental is like they don't really want to be there. But as a trainer, you just try to motivate and encourage people. This is the best place for you to be for 1 hour of your day, because you can get all your anger out, you can get all your aggression out, you can scream, you can yell, you could cuss, you could do everything in 1 hour and get it all out here. So when you leave here, your mental is a lot better and your physical is a lot better. So with being a trainer, like I said, dealing with all those emotions and saying, this is the best place for you to be, because I don't want anyone leaving like already even more mad or more stressed. So most of my clients, when they leave, they're like, thank you, because it helped me so much. I got to get all my aggression out, all my anger. I got to yell, I got to scream. I got to cuss at my trainer because he's pushing me to a limit, which is totally fine. I'd rather you yell at me and cuss at me and scream at me and get it all out before you leave here. So the mental and the physical health go hand in hand when you come into training.
Great.
I think that's very good. One of the things that we look at when we're working with clients is we tell them there are 4 phases of one's healthy developmental process to overcome life challenges. And if those areas are within balance, you're more likely going to thrive a lot better. And that is your physical, your mental, your social and environment, and your spiritual. If those 4 categories of phases are within balance, you're going to succeed a lot more healthily. And a lot of minority families, because, obtaining food for everybody's not easy access. You don't always have money to get the healthy foods and what you need. So oftentimes we eat what we can afford. And oftentimes those foods that we can afford are not always healthy. And historically, especially for African Americans, we were given the worst and the poorest kind of food to eat. And then we were required to work all day long before we can eat. So when we did eat, we gorged. And so it became our emotional stimulation or survival, because now that I'm worked all day, I've been beat, I've been talked about, all the things happened to me. Now I can sit down and eat. So when they sit down and eat, guess what? All that food that you sat down because you're exhausted from working, it sits. And so we've gained this pattern of functioning that is historically passed on to us. Work hard, then eat later, or and now that we have this 24-hour stuff open now, once we're starving, we just grab whatever close. And often, unfortunately, what is that? Fast food. We'll find ourselves eating that fast food and don't realize that it's affecting us emotionally and psychologically. And for minority females, there's so many transitions that we experience in our bodies that we didn't even educate about. That little lesson they give in school is funny. It's an outline. That's what it is. Because it really don't tell young girls about puberty. It don't really tell young men about what can happen to their bodies. It don't tell them how. I have a lot of males who have what's it called? Just slipped my mind. Problems with that digestive system, which affects stress. A lot of minorities have ulcers. Problems with being able to digest their food healthily because of the stress. Because you become an emotional eater, that food becomes my survival. To the point is, I know I'm not doing anything wrong, so I can keep eating. But what happens is, if you don't eat healthy and eat at the right time and eat the right kind of foods, it's going to mess with your mental psyche. Some kids can't have anything with red dye in it, because we have so many artificial things in our food and our children's behavior and their response. We give them too much sugar, it picks them up and it drop them. And then in our communities, they always have beer, the worst kind of beer in our communities. What does it do for our system? What does beer do for our system? got salt in it blows you up. And you may feel good for a moment, but look, after work, what do we do? Just give me a beer. I got to have a beer and I'm good to go. But you're going to sit. And then on weekends, that's all you're going to do is drink on the weekends because you're tired. You can watch some little game. And before you know it, I'm never dealing with the mental part. So I don't even think about physical. And what you're saying is so relevant. It's so relevant because a lot of our young people struggle with being healthy. They want to be pretty, but being healthy physically is something that we don't even think about.
Skylar, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what are ways in which, or like some tips you found in helping destigmatize mental health in the Black community? Because on top of the oppressions that have led to having limited resources and just not having time, on top
What
of
are the I'm so glad you asked such a perfect question. And one of the things I teach my women and my trauma victims, whether they're male or females, is the very first thing you have to do is you have to understand that anger is healthy. We have been lied to our whole lives that this anger is bad. No, it's what you do to anger that can lead to be a bad behavior. Anger is not bad. It's a healthy emotion that tells you that you've been psychologically violated or disrespected. It's like we need pain. If our body never feel pain, it won't warn us that it's been threatened by an outside object. And so one of the things I do is, one of the simple things I do is I have this little diagram that I give them, and it's a thermometer, and the thermometer reads, the lower the number, the less your stress. The higher the number, the higher your stress. So we start from 10, which very few folk have 10. We may get to 30, but 10, 30 is okay. I'm stable. My anxiety level is low. Fear and anxiety are twins. They work as partners. When one feels fearful, fear don't necessarily make you retreat. It'll make you fight too. You take the fight or fight. So oftentimes when those emotions are activated, if we don't have the skills to know how to navigate through those emotions, we're going to be reactive because it's a trigger that's been threatened. So the first thing I try to help people to do is you need to understand what your stress level is. Do write out for the week at the end of the day, what was the thing that stressed me the most today? And you'll be able to identify what's my normal weekly pattern of stress, what is my highest and what's my lowest. Because oftentimes people offend us and we make them responsible to calm us down. I tell people, you have to be accountable for your own emotions. I'm impacted by what somebody do and say to me, but I have the power to choose how to respond to it. When I work with the perpetrators in the DV program, I tell them, first of all, what you need to understand is that no matter what somebody do to you, you're responsible for your action. You're not here based on what you think or believe that person did. You're here based on how you respond to what you believe they did. It is your response that lead to your action. And I even tell victims, you're not going to change the cycle of victimization if you don't identify and be accountable, even for being a victim. Because what happens is you leave that relationship and you get into this vicious cycle. Had a young man, he about 29 years old, and he had to do an assessment with me. He was cool with the assessment. He had a problem with the assessment because he pleaded guilty to the charge. But when it came for him to do classes during that time, he said to me, he found out that I was the instructor. He said, oh, no, hell no, no way, lady. I said, okay. He said, I did some research. I said, you did? He said, I did research on women. I said, you did? He said, I dated 5 women from 5 different ethnic groups. I said, really? I said, what'd you discover? They all dogs. I said, really? Well, tell me about your research. He said, well, I said, did you pick them yourself? Did you go to e.harmony.com, one of them dating groups? He said, He said, I said, well, did your best friend help you out? He said, I said, well, how did you pick these women that you got the same results each time? He stood up. He flexed a little bit. He said, I picked them all by myself. I said, really? I said, let me educate you about something. you came up with the same results because you're the same common denominator each time. And your concept of relationships are the same. So you need to find out what is your understanding and what is your trauma that's leading you to pick the same kind of relationships in 5 different ethnic groups. He jumped back and said, oh, I never thought of that. Got through my program, came back 2 years later, looking for me. I said, what is he looking for me for? I just want to thank you. Oh, very few folk come back and thank me in the perpetrator program. But he came back to thank me. He said, you know what? I found out that I decided, because my mother was an addict. She was abused and she was an addict, and she let anybody into her life. And those people that got into her life abused us. And I said that I would never be with nobody like my mother. But didn't know, I left home at 16 and didn't know that my mother had cleaned her life up. She was doing well. She was raising out the kids and doing well. But I hadn't seen it because I was so angry about when she was struggling in her substance abuse. But I found out that when I went to my mother and told her about my experiences, and I began to deal with my own pain and my own hurt, he says, I started dating different kind of women, and I met one and I wanted to introduce you to her. I'm like, whoa. Understanding what's happening in your mental psyche, understanding your trauma and your experiences. But you first have to acknowledge that it exists. Oftentimes we mask and we say it don't exist. If it don't exist, then I can't fix it. But when you acknowledge it, it opens up the door for opportunity to be able to get the help you need.
Pearl, do you want to say something before we move on?
Yeah, so this is really a question for both of you, because you guys both have mentioned that, for instance, Ms. Casteel, like you, Dr. Casteel, you mentioned that sometimes you have to communicate through the church, and also Lavelle, you mentioned that in your community and neighborhood that you had to start your own gym. And so, and really that consideration of like redlining, and especially that historically in Tacoma, and how we zone our neighborhoods that prevents these medical centers and these physical health centers. What would be some ways that you guys think that we could reach out to these communities and become more involved and get our services there?
Education is going to be your power. You have to go to the people where they are. Go to where the children are. Go to where the youth are. Go to where they are. And we'd be surprised how outreach is one of the things that we do. We do a lot of outreach education projects to be able to empower people, because knowledge is power. They cannot change what they do not know. And oftentimes people are afraid. They're afraid that someone's going to judge them. Someone's going to look at them. You know, the taboo of mental health is something people are ashamed of. You know, oftentimes in our communities, we just, if somebody wasn't all put together, you say, oh, just look out for JoJo, or look out for Sally. You know, you didn't really just look out for her because you didn't know. You didn't have the knowledge to know who to go to and who to trust to go to. And the pastor had great intentions, but sometimes because of their limited knowledge about how to understand that mental health is a separate condition, a human condition that can affect anybody, whether you're spiritual or not, because the body is natural. And I love what Thomas said, that the body is, the mind is a part of the body. It's still that same process. And getting that physical release, see, the body has to find somewhere to release that anxiety or that pain or that focus. And physical exercise is awesome. It is one of the coping mechanisms that I really encourage my clients to do, is to get out and walk. Some people get medical problems where they're limited to do certain things. But if you can walk, and nowadays they got these new things you can do in your chair, the little bike, you can, there are all kinds of things that we can do. But oftentimes, like I said, if we don't get that awareness out, we don't put that awareness out, people are not going to know. They're not going to. And even our young people, they're young, they're energetic, they feel invincible because they can keep moving. But they don't always eat healthy either. And that affects their emotional health and their stability and being able to communicate with their family members. you know. And sometimes family members struggle with labeling, well, that's how Johnny always was. And how do you deal with that? Family member who always, you've been labeled by the family member as the one that's always angry, or you labeled by the family member the one that's always getting in trouble. Where did we get this name Black Sheep from? It's just ridiculous. We've got this negative way of responding to one another. Unfortunately, even in our families, that's where the root of the struggle is understanding the mental health within our own families and how we are passing on this pattern of learned behavior. And then we have other expectations for our children when oftentimes we struggle ourselves as examples to be able to balance out those areas.
I would just piggyback and just say outreach for sure. When I started it, you just kind of see what the need is in the community. And being a Black trainer, there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of big 6'4", 300-pound trainers. Most trainers are a lot smaller. So I seen that need, and I seen that I can help. So if I just start with one person and then that goes to 2 people and to 3 and to 4, then I'm going to do it because I have a passion and a desire for it. So if you have a passion and desire for something and you believe in yourself, it's going to work. So the biggest thing I do to help clients, because could be so intimidating, your first workout is free and it's just me and you. And I talk to you more than we work out the first time, just to get to know who you are and you get to know who I am. Because if you walk into a gym and you see me, you might want to walk right back out, which is understandable. But I want you to feel comfortable being in my space, being in my gym, and learning your body, learning to focus, learning to believe in yourself. So the best thing I could say to most of my clients is I train a kid. He comes with his mom. He's 7, and I train a lady who's 70 years old. So if a kid who's 7 and a kid who's 70, a lady who's 70 years old, like, why can't you? And we're all different. We all different body types. Like I said, I'm 300 pounds and I'm a personal trainer. So just believing in yourself and just showing up is key to working out, key to a lot of things, just showing up and being present in a situation. So,
And that's very important. And I would continue to encourage you as marketing yourself, because you're a young man and the youth is, showing up at the places where they are and showing up even at churches and encouraging. I know that there are some churches that are looking for someone to come in and, teach their members, about health and taking care of themselves, because we have so many health conditions that are within our communities. And they're young people with, on all kinds of medication because they have not found a healthy way to navigate or to cope with stress. And exercise is one of the main keys that I promote with my clients, because it's something that they can empower themselves with. And I think it's a really good tool, but you need the balance, the mental health. And I think that one of the things that you would be able to offer is safety, especially for victims. They know that if they're with you, they don't have to worry about anybody harming them. You'll looked at as someone that can protect them. And also I teach them that all men are not the same. There's some men that will come and hurt, but there's some men who come to heal, and the only way you're going to be able to understand how to expand your emotional balance is to be able to make sure that all 4 categories are within that balance. And I really like the promotion of health and mental health, because it's crucial. It is so crucial. I think they did something about some research that was done on STDs and how people interact in intimate relationships. Oftentimes, they rely on that for their balance of healthiness, when you can balance yourself mentally and physically, and you feel good about who you are, and know that life is going to bring problems, but problems don't have to own you. You can own it. You can decide what to do with that. So that people say, I don't want to talk about it. Why am I talking about it? It happened long ago. You can't do nothing about it. Yes, you can, because the power that you have is when you were in that trauma, you were vulnerable to where to put it. But now that you are dealing with it, you decide where it's going to go. You decide how it's going to dominate or control your life. You can change that energy to something positive. And I think having that mental balance and getting therapy, it is the greatest gift that I have learned to use in a way to be able to support people. I tell people, I can't change you. I'm here to support you. You do the work. I support you as you do the work. But you must understand who you are. And I think becoming physically fit is an attribute to empower and to encourage and to motivate young people to do that, especially if you're dealing with sexual trauma victims. You know, if I get fit and get strong, I'll be able to defend myself a lot better. I'll be able to protect my children. You know, I'll be able to navigate through my stresses a lot better. Because oftentimes, even when parents come in and worked all day, they're a single parent, they work 1 or 2 jobs, they work long hours, and they got to deal with them kids. You know, because kids ain't got nobody else to go to but that one parent. But if they've got this exercise routine, if they've got some mental strategies going for meditation and prayer and have that stability, they're gonna respond to their children a lot better. But when your stress is high, the first thing you need to do is take a time out. If a child's not in danger, if the house ain't gonna burn down, I tell people, you ain't gotta deal with it right then and there. Get your headspace in a good place. I used to tell women, go stretch. Go in your room and stretch. Because stretching, you ain't got to be jumping and running at that moment, because sometimes you don't have access to get to somewhere quickly. But if you start stretching, doing stress reduction exercises, that's going to get your mind in the position you're going to be able to handle things a lot better. But oftentimes, we haven't been given that information. We haven't been given that knowledge. And so we become reactive. Now we got CPS called. Now we got somebody calling the cops on us. Now we're self-medicating on drugs and alcohol because we don't have a release and a healthy way to express what we're dealing with. So physical health is so critical in the phase of dealing with life's challenges. But if your mental health is not stable, it creates that uneven balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Castile and Lavelle. And what we are saying is take care of your physical and your mental health. Both are important components to wellness. Again, thank you, Dr. Castile. Thank you, Lavelle. You are listening to Confabulation. And again, if you or anyone that you know is in an abusive situation or experiencing domestic violence, contact our Sisters House at 253-383-4275 or visit us on our website and see what we're about at oursistershouse.com. Thank you all and have a great weekend.
Thank you.